coming to you live from Tennessee, from the east to the west. We are talking Cowboys everything. And you just entered
the Cowboy Zone.
Welcome back to our pregame show of the Cowboy Zone. I'm Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you guys live from Memphis, Tennessee. And I see we got quite a few people joining us, so thank you guys for tuning in this morning for this week's pregame episode of the Cowboy Zone. As always, I try to get you guys out by 11:50 Central Time so you can have a chance to get your favorite beverages of choice ready, set your fantasy lineups, and get ready for a full slate of NFL football. So I'm running a few minutes behind, but we're going to get into it. Not a lot of news to talk about from Wednesday, so we should be able to definitely get out by 11:50. For you guys that are new to the show, thank you for joining us. If you are watching right now, be sure to get in the comments. Let me know your name. Let me know where you're watching from. And also, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like this broadcast. And also, hit that subscribe button, Bluff City Cowboys on YouTube, so that you can be aware of all future Cowboy Zone episodes. So, let's get right into it, guys. I see those views are steady climbing, so want to make sure you guys join us and participate. First things first, got to talk about the injuries for this week. So let's kick this off with an injury report.
Injury report.
Okay, so on the Cowboy side, it sounds like Tyler Biadasz and Zach Martin are both healthy this week, so we should have 4/5 of our offensive line in place. And William Coulter, thank you for joining us. Definitely got to get this dub today. Got a very good opportunity based off of what's coming out of New England, in my opinion. So we'll get into that right now. It looks like we're still missing Tyron Smith, which is interesting because last week the reports were that Tyron was the one that was going to be the most likely to play. Well, he did play for 2 snaps, and then he stood on the sideline for the rest of the game. And this week, he is out again for the second week in a row. So that's definitely something we got to keep paying attention to see when he returns and to figure out exactly what that problem is, because they say it's a knee, but you would think if it was as bad as they thought it was, he would have been able to play last week. This is probably the most concerning injury of every injury that's on the slate for this week's matchup. And the reason for that is because of Matt Judon. Matt Judon is the talented defensive end outside linebacker for the New England Patriots, 31 years old, but that guy can get after the quarterback. He's the type of guy that he can get 2, 3, 4 sacks in a game by himself. He's a real game wrecker. And I'm concerned after watching Edoga, which reports are that Dallas are, he's going to be the starter this week again at left tackle. And he looked pretty bad against Zaven Collins, who is what I would consider a part-time pass rusher, a former first-round pick, drafted to be a middle linebacker, but because of depth issues and scheme fit, they put him as defensive end. He was able to cause a lot of pressure last week against Chuma Edoga, and now Edoga gets what I would consider probably a top 10 pass rusher in the league in Matt Judon this week. So if they can neutralize that matchup, I think we'll have some good chances. But if they leave him one-on-one, and I hate to say the name, but like Chaz Green, we could have one of those scenarios happen this week. And I see I got my classmate Raphael Govan joining us. Raphael, thank you for joining. Drafting left tackle next year, it's time to let Tyron go. Even with that, Raphael, we drafted Tyler Smith last year to be what I thought was the left tackle of the future. So if that's the case, they should just put Tyler Smith at left tackle. Even if Tyron's healthy, he's now your swing. If we get to the playoffs and Tyron looks like he's at 80-90%, and we want to just put our best 5 out there, then you go put Tyron back in, move Tyler back to guard, depending on how he looks in the season, and you go from there. Don't keep Tyler Smith at guard if you think he's the tackle of the future. And don't keep putting what everybody can see is the worst option we have at left tackle in Chuma Edoga. Yeah, Tavis, I agree. It's probably going to get ugly unless we keep a tight end over there with them. So I got my guy Kelvin Holmes joining us. What's up, Kelvin? Got a big matchup against the Niners next week. So I see you came in a week early. Be sure to join us this Wednesday, 8:30 Central Standard Time. We're going to break down Cowboys and Niners. And also, I got my guy Jay from the Bay, diehard 49ers fan and podcaster. I'm going to be on his podcast at some point this week. I think it's going to be tomorrow night, but I'm not sure. So if you guys are free, make sure you catch me on there also. And if he has a little time, he'll swing by the Cowboy Zone on Wednesday night to talk about that game as well. Yeah, I see we got Mendoza. Thank you for joining us, Mendoza. I always appreciate you tuning in. And Raphael saying, let's draft a guard. Yeah, we definitely got to do something. I think TJ Bass might be ready by next year, in my opinion. So that's an option. And then we still have a Sim Richards, the 5th round pick we drafted this year. He could be left tackle. He could be left guard. I think he's one of those left side guys that we always talk about. He's not versatile enough to switch from left to right. But if you put him on the left side, I think he's a solid guy. So we have some competition on the team who can give us a chance to improve that left side. But just like you said, we can't keep relying on Tyron at this point. And Tav, you said exactly what I said before you came in. Definitely got to get some 12 personnel out there, because Matt Judon is a game wreck on the inside. Tav is saying with TJ ready or not, still draft the left tackle. I definitely agree with that. We got to bring in 2nd round guy. We could probably talk a whole nother show about this, but if you guys watched the draft thing that came out on Roku, and they were talking about how Dallas had a coin flip between Mozzie Smith and Matt Bergeron out of Syracuse, the left guard / left tackle, and then we were Mozzie. The Mozzie pick wasn't bad to me, but knowing that, I'm kind of upset we didn't take Bergeron and figure things out as the season progressed, because that would have been the piece that we needed. But all right, guys, let's get back into it. We're at 11:26. Still got a couple of more segments to go. The biggest injury news on our side is Tyron Smith. So let's talk about the other side with the New England Patriots, because they have a couple of very concerning injuries on their end as well to worry about. So on the New England Patriots side, I know you guys probably don't know who these guys are by looking at them, but the first guy is Jonathan Jones, their starting cornerback. So I talked about this last week with the New England Patriots. They are diminished at corner. They play a lot of 3 safety sets, and they play a lot of their safeties at nickel and outside corner because of lack of depth. So they just lost another starting piece. So more than likely, we're going to see a lot of Jalen Mills covering at the cornerback position instead of his more natural safety position. As of right now, it looks like the Patriots starting corners are going to be Christian Gonzalez, the 1st round pick, which we reported on Wednesday. News out of New England was saying the team would let Christian Gonzalez travel with CeeDee Lamb. I doubt that's the case. Kind of watching his games, he hasn't traveled at all this year. I doubt they let this be the first week. So you can if he does travel, that's even better for us because he's their best boundary corner. They also have Sean Wade, former Ohio State Buckeye, who personally better safety than corner, but he's going to be their starting corner on one side. And then it looks like, based off of need, they have a 5'9" corner named Miles Bryant, who will probably be their other corner. So they're going to be diminished at corner, and the corners they have outside of Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion, are subpar. So I'm expecting this to be a game where Dak has to step up and lead us outside of that and other reasons. The other guy listed right here is their starting guard, Cole Strange. And I know if you guys follow the Cowboy Zone during draft season, we talked a lot about Cole Strange coming out in 2021. So the guy who's replacing him is a guard named Antonio Mafi, which is actually a guy that I really liked coming out of UCLA. Now, the problem with Mafi is Mafi was a 2-year starter at defensive tackle. UCLA converted him to guard, and he only started a year. So he has the talent, but he doesn't have the experience. So now he's making his first NFL start at guard, and he's going to be in a spot where he's lined up against a lot of Osa. Now, last week, Osa didn't get to make the impact that we expected because of the need to play against the run. But I feel like we have the talent this week to at least neutralize that run game and not let it be as detrimental as it was last week. So I think Osa's going to have a lot more pass rush opportunities. And where Mafi makes up for it in strength, he lacks in stiffness and technique. So he's the type of guy, if he can get his hands on you, he's going to maul you. But he doesn't understand the hand placement to be able to extend and get a defensive tackle before he gets in his rush. And Osa's one of the top defensive tackles right now in using his explosiveness and athleticism to get around guards. So there's going to be a big matchup on the inside that you guys should pay attention to with Mafi and Osa. And then on top of that, the Cowboys like to sprinkle in a little bit of Micah Parsons blitzing from the inside as well. And that one's going to be a recipe for disaster for that New England Patriots offensive line. So that's pretty much all we got for the injury report this week. Only got a few injuries, but for both sides, both Dallas and the Patriots, those injuries are going to be very, very important towards the outcome of the game. All right, guys. So now we're going to move ahead, and I want to get you guys more involved. So next segment we're going to do is talk about the bold predictions for this week's game. So for you guys who are joining for the first time, I want you guys to give me your bold prediction for what you think will happen in terms of a stat, how you think someone will perform. I'll make a note of them, and then if one of those bold predictions hits, you will get a prize. But remember, they do have to be bold predictions, not something that's predictable like CeeDee Lamb getting 60 yards. All right, guys, so let's get into it with our bold predictions.
Bold predictions.
All right, guys, so let me know in the comments what you got. All right, Raphael Govan saying Dak will have 400 yards and 4 TDs. Definitely a bold prediction. You know, you actually stole mine, Raphael. Mine wasn't as bold as yours. I did have Dak going 350 and 3 touchdowns because I feel like just because of how stout New England is in their front seven and how weak they are right now at corner, this has to be a Dak game. So I feel like when we come back here on Wednesday, it's either going to be, wow, Dak had a great game, or social media is going to explode and all the talking heads are going to have a lot of great points to talk about. I feel like it's going to be either way, but there's no way we can hand this ball off 25, 30 times and expect to be successful. Mendoza saying Brandon Cooks has a hat trick. Brandon Cooks, former first-round pick for the Saints, was traded to New England, had a couple of good years there. So this is one of his revenge games. So that definitely could happen. And to be honest, looking at the makeup of this team, I think this is the one game that Cooks will probably go off in because I don't think Gonzalez is going to travel. I think he's going to stick on that left side where Gallup is. And then you're going to have, because they're limited at corner, they're going to try to bracket Lamb as much as possible. So that's going to leave Brandon Cooks with a lot of favorable matchups on the outside against what's probably a fourth or fifth cornerback. So yeah, that's definitely a good bold prediction, Mendoza, with the hat trick. All right, guys, let's get one more bold prediction out there. So for everybody that's watching, let me know a bold prediction that you think may happen in this week's game, and then we'll move ahead to our keys to victory, and I'll get you guys game predictions. So since Raphael indirectly took my bold prediction, I'll make this bold prediction on the defensive side. I think a defensive player gets 2 interceptions. I don't know which one it is, so I don't want to say that, but I think a guy gets 2 interceptions. I think Mac Jones is going to be under a lot of pressure. Unlike what we saw last week, he's not very good in the pocket, and he throws a lot of comeback routes. And for you guys that know, if those comeback routes aren't thrown perfectly, or that receiver has a lack of concentration, that ball bounces right in the air, and our cornerbacks are the best in the league at picking those off. So I'm expecting one of our cornerbacks or one person in our secondary to have 2 interceptions in this week's game. I see we got Shane Odom joining us saying the Cowboys have a trick play on a field goal attempt. We haven't done one of those in quite a while, so that would definitely be a bold prediction. I hope that wouldn't mean we're down and we're getting desperate. So I'm almost hoping I don't see that one, Shane Odom, but definitely a bold prediction. Taking a guess, Bland and or Gilmore both get one. I feel 2 interceptions coming this game. I'm making it bold by saying one person gets both, but I definitely feel like with the way our cornerbacks play, they play a lot of man, they play close, they all have good ball skills, and the Patriots live and die off comebacks with their receivers. I think those guys get their hands in there, or they're sticky enough in coverage where they cause a lack of concentration. So definitely something to pay attention to. All right, guys, we're at 11:36. Raphael saying Mozzie gets a sack today. Definitely a bold prediction. Hopefully we do get to see him a lot in this game. If he is playing, he'll be in that spot, probably rotating back and forth with Osa. So he will get a chance to go against Antonio Mafi, and he may have an opportunity to get one of those sacks. And also, Mendoza, you brought up Gilmore's name again. Got to remember, this is also a revenge game for Stephon Gilmore because he was playing for the Patriots, went to the Colts, and then we traded for him from the Colts. So Gilmore knows this team better than anybody else, and I'm sure he's seen a lot of Mac Jones in practice, and he probably, even though it was his rookie year, he probably knows a lot of his tendencies, and he could be another good coach on the field for those guys. David Dermer, thank you for joining us again. Appreciate you tuning in. And you got Pollard for 200. That'll be probably the boldest one, David, because I don't see this team being able to run against New England. So definitely a bold prediction. All right, guys. So let's keep the show moving. I can get you guys out of here by 11:50. Let's go to our next segment, and I will give you a couple of the keys to victory that I think we need in order to be successful in this week's game. And for you guys that are watching, give me 3 keys to victory in the comments also so we can talk about it.
Keys to victory.
All right. I mean, some of these are pretty obvious. You can always say turnovers. You can always say run the ball. But these are my most concerning ones right now. Number 1, we have to control the run game. I told you guys last week, we struggle with teams that run off tackle. We struggle with teams that have explosive running backs. And I warned you guys for about 10 minutes about this. I don't think we have those problems this week. Looking at the Patriots tape, the Patriots run a lot of A and B gap runs, so they're going to run it right at you. They run a lot of draw plays. That's the one that's concerning because our linebackers can get tricked into dropping in coverage too soon and leaving some massive holes in the inside. And then the Patriots will try to throw in a toss every once in a while once teams figure them out and they start to clog the inside. But in my opinion, we're not good off tackle, but we're very good on the edges. So we're usually pretty good against toss plays, but we can't allow their two big running backs to take control of this game on the inside, particularly Zeke Elliott in his big revenge game. Reports out of New England sound like they're going to give him a lot of carries this week, and he's going to definitely be motivated. So that's something you got to pay attention to. Don't let Zeke get going because you guys know we have a lot of Zeke fans still out there, and if he gets going, he can easily turn the fan base in that game. David Dermer saying establish the run, quick outside passes, and pressure Matt. All great points. Raphael saying use Cooks on seam routes and post. Definitely got to take advantage of those safeties. Mendoza saying stop the run in our O-line versus their front seven. That second one, Mendoza, is going to be very important because their two D tackles on the inside, I think, is Bentley, and I can't think of the other one. And then they have Uche on the outside. Those guys are talented. And like I said Wednesday, everybody's big and athletic. So there's no small guy to pick on. Even their linebackers are 250 plus. So they have a very stout front seven, and those guys have the ability to put a hat on a hat and close up running lanes. I see we got Joe joining us from Italy, getting ready for some football. Thank you for joining us, Joe, for these last 10 minutes of the Cowboy Zone. Let me get through these last two keys to victory, and then we'll close the show out. My second one, and I keep saying this, and Mendoza just brought it up. Their front seven on defense is tough. They don't get a lot of credit. They may have the best front seven in the NFL. I'm doing a quick scan in my head. You could put the Niners up there, but I honestly think the Patriots front seven, particularly against the run, may be the best in the NFL. So there's not going to be a lot of running lanes. Dak has to pass it. And no better week to pass it than a week where they have three of their starting corners out, and we know they're going to play safeties on the inside. So we have to pass it early. We have to pass it often. Like David Dermer said, you got to do quick outside passes because their corners aren't very good outside of Gonzalez. We have the talent to beat these guys one-on-one. We just have to execute it and keep that ball going out of Dak's hands early, often, and quick, like David Dermer said. Number 3, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but Matt Judon is that guy when it comes to pass rush. And I think Tav has brought up Wednesday. He's kind of along the lines of the outside linebacker in Buffalo that was formerly in Denver. I always go blank when I'm live. Von Miller. He's another Von Miller type guy where he just knows how to pass rush, and he can easily get 2, 3, 4 sacks if you don't leave him unchecked. So we definitely have to make sure we're sending help over to that left side for Chuma Edoga because we cannot leave him in one-on-one opportunities when I think we have to pass it today. And Joe saying, I love Zeke. I wish him the best, but today we'll shut him down and taking away his spoon. No feeding Zeke today. Joe, you know they're going to do everything in their power to get him in the end zone. So definitely watch that. We have to keep them out of the red zone because if Zeke gets in the end zone, he's jumping in the Salvation Army bucket. You already know it. So we definitely got to make sure we contain Zeke today and don't let him get going. Shane Odom saying they need to unleash Deuce today. You know what? I would agree with that also. Like I just talked about, The Patriots linebackers are all 250 plus. I mean, they're athletic for their size, but none of them can keep up the deuce out of the backfield. So we have to take advantage of all the positives we have in the passing game to make sure we keep that ball moving and keep them on the field. One thing I wish I could see us do more, like when you see other teams play and you see them try to make a personnel shift, I wish we just snap the ball so we can get more 12 men on the field penalties. I feel like this is one of those games where we could get a lot of 12 men on the field penalties and get a couple of free plays. So that's something else you guys should pay attention to this week. I'm hoping to see at least one 12 men on the field penalty against the Patriots because they're going to be shorthanded in their secondary and they're going to have to do a lot of shifting to keep up with us moving stuff around. Appreciate that, Stephen White. I always enjoy you joining us. And I think that's all the keys I have. You guys gave some good ones also. Mendoza pointing out the three guys they have on the inside. Christian Barmore, former first-round pick or second-round pick, I believe, from Alabama. Hasn't done a lot this year, but he's definitely a guy that can that has the athleticism to be able to have an effect on the inside. Speaking of that, Mendoza, something I noticed watching yesterday's news, the Patriots did not bring up a cornerback from the practice squad. They brought up a defensive tackle. So I thought that was unusual, and I looked at the team, and it looks like Barnmore and another one of their defensive tackles, Godchild, are both questionable. So we may not see these guys this week as much as we think. The fact that they brought up a defensive tackle from the practice squads, considering how deep they are at that defensive line spot. But they also have a guy named Keon White, another very talented young guy who can come in and give some quality snaps if needed. And then they got Jawan Bentley, who can be a game wrecker on the inside of the defensive line at that 5-6 tech. So a lot to pay attention to in their front seven. Joe saying we need to really unleash our three receivers. It's a shame after 3 games Dak doesn't have a touchdown. I'm expecting that to change this week, Joe. I would almost guarantee that changes. I think it's 2 today. I think a minimum of 2 touchdown passes from Dak today. So if you guys have Dak on your team, you might want to look into putting him on your starting lineup. All right, guys. I brought that up. We're going to get the fantasy favorites in a minute. But before I get to that, yeah, you talked a lot about Keon Mendoza. That's why the name rung a bell as soon as I saw it. And he had a very good preseason. And I'm shocked he hasn't contributed as much in the regular season, considering how dominant he looked in some preseason games. So I see I got my guy Terry Rudd joining us. Terry, thank you for joining. We're at the end of the show. Got about 5 more minutes. Gonna knock these game predictions out and then go to fantasy favorites, and then we'll enjoy a full day of NFL football and Cowboys football. So let's get into it, and let's get your game predictions for this week's matchup.
Game prediction.
All right, guys, I'll go first while you guys put them in the comments. Stephen White saying 24-20 Cowboys. Pretty close to what I have. Like I said before, we won't have the same issues we had against the Cardinals. We don't have to worry about a quarterback who can get outside the pocket. We don't have to worry about a running back who can hit that C gap and explode. We don't have to worry about a fast receiver that our cornerbacks have a problem keeping up with in man-to-man coverage. So I feel like we're going to have a much better defensive game. Also, if we don't let the running game get away from us, I think we're going to see a whole lot more pass rush, which is going to create a lot of good opportunities for our defensive line and our secondary. So I think the Patriots are going to score points because they're a well-coached team. So I'm close to Mendoza. Actually, David Derner, you and I have the same score. I would go Cowboys 27, Patriots 17. Looking at the comments, it looks like everybody's along those same lines. Stephen White 24-20. So you're about 3 points off either way from me. Terry Rudd 24-14. Again, we're all about 3 points off with both teams from each other. Mendoza, same thing, 27-14. I see we got Charlie joining us at the end of the show. Charlie, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Shane Odom, 31-14. So it looks like we're all pretty much in that same. Patriots score 2 touchdowns. The Cowboys end up still winning comfortably. Raphael going 35-14. So as we go through these, the numbers keep going up higher and higher. Mendoza starts us off at 27. Then Shane comes in at 31. Raphael goes at 35. And then Joe tops everybody and takes us with another 40 burger. So always good to get that perspective from the fan base, because one thing I hate to see is when a team scores a touchdown on us. I know that the entire fan base, all is not lost, because you guys are knowledgeable enough in the game and you realize that the Patriots are good enough to score a couple of touchdowns and not act like it's the end of the world. All right, guys, we're at 11:49, so we got one segment left, and this segment is fantasy favorites. So with fantasy favorites, I don't like to do the top guys, the top big name guys. I like to pick one person from a game outside of Dallas and then one person from the Cowboys game that, if you're looking for a last minute replacement or a good guy to throw in, he has a great matchup to be able to give you some points. So let's hop into it in fantasy favorites. I know we got a lot of good fantasy football players in right now, just because I know you guys. So I'm interested to see some of your fantasy favorites for this week.
Fantasy favorites.
All right, guys. So let me know your fantasy favorites for this week in the comments. I'll start off with the player outside of the Cowboys game, and then I'll go to guy inside. Outside the Cowboys game, this one's not what I would call a guy you must start, but let's assume you only have one quarterback and you need a guy who can come in and get you 16 to 18 points as a quarterback this week. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Remember the name. Cleveland Browns. The Browns quarterback was ruled out this morning. They're playing the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's cornerbacks are susceptible to giving up plays. And DTR had a very good preseason. I think that's going to roll over into the regular season if given the opportunity. So I wouldn't start him if you have a good quarterback. But let's say you had Derek Carr and Jimmy G and you don't have anything else and you got to start a guy. If you're looking through the waiver wires, there's not going to be many better quarterbacks available than DTR to get you 16 to 18 points. Now, a guy who I think you can plug in and start if he's on your team, I really like James Cook this week against Miami. I think after watching Miami put up 70, Buffalo has to make a concerted effort to run the ball and keep the ball out of the Dolphins' offense hands. So look for James Robinson to get a lot of stats. Another running back I would pay attention to is Rachaad White out of Tampa Bay. He hasn't performed like he should have, in my opinion, but he gets all the touches. And New Orleans front seven is really good. I could see him having 5 or 6 catches for about 40 yards. So I think he can get about 10 points just from the receiving game alone. And then anything he gets from the rushing game is going to be a bonus. Thinking of a receiver this week, I really like Tank Dell this week. I think he had a good game last week. They're playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh secondary has been pretty bad all year so far. So I like Tank Dell in that matchup as an underrated guy. And then also, if you're looking for a last-minute replacement, Adam Thielen in the revenge game against Minnesota, he exploded last week. It sounds like Andy Dalton's going to be the quarterback again this week, and he leans heavily on the veterans. So if you're looking for at least a touchdown and 50 or 60 yards, I think Adam Thielen gives you that this week. All right, let's go to the comments really quick and see what we got. And then I'll go back to my fantasy favorites in the Cowboys game. Terry saying Brandon Cooks, 4 receptions, 60 yards on the TD. Terry likes Devontae Parker on the Patriot side. Outside of that game, he likes Russell Wilson going against the Miami Dolphins. He thinks, not Miami Dolphins, I'm sorry. Russell Wilson going against the Chicago Bears. Chicago has a very bad defense, and Russ got embarrassed last week against Miami Dolphins. So he thinks Russ is going to make up for that. I think all the receivers are playing this week in Denver, so he definitely has the opportunity to make some big plays. Terry doubling down on that Denver-Chicago game, saying Cortland Sutton has a big game. And Mendoza, Mike Williams is out. Joshua Palmer's getting the start on the outside. The Raiders have a weak secondary. Their pass rush is getting discouraged. We saw Chandler Jones got cut. It sounds like their other pass rusher is very upset with the direction of the team right now. So there's going to be some opportunities for the Chargers, and their quarterback really likes targeting Josh Palmer when he's a starter. So definitely a good choice, Mendoza. Stephen White says Pittsburgh receiver at Houston. I don't know if you're talking about Allen Robinson, or are you talking about I'm sure it's not Calvin Austin you're thinking about. So my guess will probably be George Pickens is the receiver you're thinking about at Houston. He'll probably have 200 yards. He definitely has the opportunity. Stephen White said Pittsburgh playing Darnell Washington too. Definitely good point, Stephen White. Darnell Washington at guard, I believe, or tackle. Mendoza also has Pickens. 11:55 going into the Cowboys game. Terry pretty much hit all the ones I really like. I really like Brandon Cooks this week. I would probably take those stats up a little bit more. I think he has about 6 catches this week, 6 catches for 90. I think Cooks is going to get targeted a lot. I think he's going to be the guy. I also like Dak. I said this was my bold prediction. 300 yards and 3 touchdowns is not unreasonable, so you definitely can look at that. Somebody said, Shane Odom said Ryan Tannehill versus the Bengals. The Bengals secondary is definitely weak. You can look for Cincinnati to try to score a lot of points, so Tennessee may have to play from behind a little bit. But then you got Terry on the opposite side saying Cincinnati's defense is going to play good against Tennessee. So definitely a good matchup to pay attention to based off of these conversations to see which guy is right. Mendoza saying Madison could make some noise. I know he's a shaky name. You know, he almost has to, Mendoza, because Cam Akers is playing this week. So he has to find a way to keep Cam Akers on the bench. He had a good game last week. Let's hope he carries that over to keep a stranglehold on his starting running back spot. And they also are playing Carolina, who they have an above average run defense, but they can definitely be ran on. Raphael saying Washington defense 7 sacks today against Houston. Houston is still weak at offensive line. They got 2 offensive linemen injured. I don't think Tunsil is back. So there's definitely some opportunities for Washington to have a lot of sacks this week. All right, guys, I think that's pretty much it. I want to get you guys out of here with a few minutes to check your fantasy lineups, get your beverage of choice, and turn the TV on to your noon game before we get into the Cowboys game at 3 o'clock. So thank you guys for joining us this week. And if you haven't done so already, you can find me on social media. Find me on YouTube and Facebook at Bluff City Cowboys. You can find me on Twitter at Bluff Cowboys. And also be sure to join us this Wednesday at 8:30 Central Standard Time for this week's episode of the Cowboy Zone. Hopefully we'll have a victory Wednesday as we break down the win against the New England Patriots. And we'll look ahead to the game against the San Francisco 49ers. I have a lot of very knowledgeable football friends who are Niners fans, so I'm sure they will be very live in the comments this week. So make sure you guys join us also so that we can have some lively discussions about this matchup. Hopefully I have my guy Jay from the Bay, diehard Niners fan and podcaster, joining us this week. But if not, it's still going to be a great episode with a lot of football talk. So this is Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy. Thank you guys for joining me for our pregame show, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. And as always, let's go Cowboys. You guys have a good day.
Thank you for watching the Cowboy Zone.